All right, so thanks everybody for joining me today. I hope you can see my screen right now. You should be seeing the title slide for today's presentation. We are going to be looking at the GW blog service at the university. So the goal of today's session really is just to familiarize you guys with what the platform is, give you some tips and tricks, and really show you how to get your website started. So we'll talk about what the service is, who can use it, the design options available. We'll talk about website accessibility, which is an important one, and then we'll talk about some of the basics of using the service. So the difference between a post and a page, how the plugins and widgets work, how you can configure your home page, and then the types of support that are available to you once you do start working on your website. So GW Blogs is a WordPress-based content management system, and if you don't know what a content management system is, and CMS for short, it basically just means that you as a website owner can have a website and only have to worry about it from the content perspective. So taking any text that you have, any images that you have, plugging that into the system, and it will generate a web page and a website for you, not having to worry about design, not having to worry about development or anything like that. Campus Press is a hosted product, and it's owned by a vendor called EduBlogs, and we basically pay for access. So because of that, there are limitations on what can be customized, and these limitations are based not only on the vendor, EduBlogs, but also on GW's own policies. We need to make sure that even though the system might be able to do, 1,001 things, if 900 of them violate our policies, we can't obviously allow you guys to be able to do those things. So what that means is the Division of IT, along with my department, Marketing Creative Services, we reviewed the service when it was stood up, and we periodically review the service throughout the year just to make sure that any new plugins and widgets do not violate GW's policies and other federal regulations that we have to comply with. And excuse me, the vendor does the same thing on their own schedule, making sure that any themes and plugins that are available in the system don't violate any policies that they have as well. And then just a final note on this slide, even though the service is called GW Blogs, you can use it to create traditional websites as opposed to creating a blog website if that's not what you want. So who can use GW Blogs? It's open to academic and administrative offices, so if a department wants to stand up a blog website, or maybe just a site to share news or internal resources within the department, they are free to use this service. We also have been having a number of center and institutes move into the service to quickly stand up a website. It's also open to individuals, so any current faculty, staff, or student can have a personal website on the service. Your access to the service is based off of your GW NetID single sign-on, so the same username and password that you use to log into your GW Gmail account is what you'll use to log into this. Once you do log in with your NetID, a personal site is automatically created for you at blogs.gwu.edu/ and then whatever your NetID is. And if you've logged into the service, synced your NetID to the service in the manner that I just described, you're now considered an existing user, and you can be granted access to any other GW blog website on the platform. So this is important to note if you are signing in so that you can work on maybe an academic or administrative office website, or if you're helping a professor manage their website as a student worker, something along those lines. The first thing you have to do is sync your own personal NetID to the platform, and then you'll be an existing user who can be granted access to this other website as an editor, author, admin, whatever the case may be. Due to security protocols, organizational NetID accounts must receive prior approval before they can be synced to the platform, and that's because these are not NetIDs that are assigned to individuals. They are assigned to offices, which means that multiple people will have access to that username and password, and the honest truth is we just never change those passwords. We even have one within our office, and I don't recall the last time that password was changed. So because they are insecure accounts, we don't like to just allow anybody to sync the organizational NetID to the platform. We want to make sure that there's a good use case for it, and to make sure that basically we're keeping the platform secure. So if you do have a need to have an organizational NetID, have a user account on the platform, please email us at onlinestrategy@gwu.edu. We'll take a look at your use case, and if approved, we'll go ahead and get that account created for you. And then just a final note, alumni accounts are not supported at all. So if you are currently a student and you have a personal site on the platform, you can export your website information so that you don't lose all of that and take that externally, but you cannot keep that website, excuse me, available and active post graduation. So that's something to keep in mind. So who can use GW Blogs continued? Again, because these are used by both offices and individuals, there are two types of sites that are available to accommodate everybody's needs. So the first one is the official GW Blogs websites. These are not for individuals, and that includes faculties. These are meant to represent official university business, so typically they're reserved only for the academic and administrative units at the university. So if there's an event coming up, if there's a center or an institute, the departmental blogs that I mentioned before, these all fall under the umbrella of an official GW website. And in the footer of these websites, they'll see the official GW logo and those institutional links to like the EEO policy, the privacy policy, campus advisories, things along those lines. Those will show up in the footer of an official GW blog website. Now, if you're an individual, if you're a faculty member, a student, or a staff member, you will sign up for an unofficial blog site. These are the sites for individuals, including those faculty sites, the CV ones, if the faculty is running a lab, something along those lines. Those all fall under the unofficial sites umbrella. They do not technically have to represent official university business. They can if you would like them to, but if you wanted it to be about something of a personal nature to you, you're absolutely welcome to do that. You cannot use it to run a business, just keep that in mind. And in the footer of an unofficial website, you'll have a disclaimer instead that essentially says the opinions expressed on this website are those of the site owner, not necessarily representative of the university. So that's the difference between an unofficial blog site and an official blog site. To request an official blog site, there's a form on blogs.gw.edu that you will fill out. The submissions to that form go to my team as well as a couple of key people in the division of IT. We review those on a weekly basis, and if they're approved, we go ahead and turn that site on for you and get you access to it. If your request comes from under a school or a college, we actually pass that request along to that school or college first so that they can get a look at it and give their approval, just because there is typically a central team either in the communication side or on the technology side within the various schools and colleges that have governance and oversight of all of the web presences related to the school or college. So they're the ones who will actually give the approval for those website project requests. So some of you may be familiar with a service at the university called GW Drupal. While the GW Drupal is the official website platform for academic and administrative offices at the university, and so even though GW Blog can be used by those same units, it's not intended to replace Drupal. So if you already have a Drupal website and you're thinking to yourself, well, I'd rather just use Campus Press, we won't necessarily just say, okay, let's go ahead and make the switch. We're going to have to take a look at your request on a case-by-case basis. Sometimes it will get approved. Sometimes we'll actually have to say, no, we actually need you to stay in Drupal. It's really just going to depend on the use case. The other thing to keep in mind is you can have a Drupal site and enhance it with your GW Blogs website. So you can have your Drupal site for the administrative front page for your office essentially, but then maybe you're using your GW Blogs website to have a traditional blog, as we mentioned before, or to provide some internal communications for staff within your department. Those are some of the use cases that we've seen where offices have both a Drupal and a GW Blogs website. The other thing that we have been seeing these sites used for is for very highly targeted content. So for conferences and lab websites and again centers and institutes, they've been pretty successful using this service as a platform. And we already spoke about this last portion here as far as academic departments and faculty who would like to use the service. Again, there's typically going to be a central communication or technical office within your school or college, and we'll always loop them in first before we proceed with your request, just to make sure that they've given approval to proceed with that request and they're aware that there's going to be a new website attached to their name out there on the internet. So what are the design options? This is something that we often have people ask us. There are 3 semi-customized themes available at this time. They are GW Tiny Framework, GW Ward, and GW White, and they all share this GW Blue color palette. These three themes were turned on for three reasons, really. Out of the box, they are accessible, and I'll talk about web accessibility in a minute. They're also mobile optimized, so regardless of if somebody is looking at your website on a desktop computer, a mobile phone, or a tablet, they're still going to be able to have essentially the same experience across any one of those types of devices. Um, and then they also, I said they were accessible, they're mobile optimized, and they were good for SEO. They were kind of, each one seemed to also fill the need for the majority of the users that we expected to use the service when we turned it on. So they can provide a pretty simple bare bones website, or they can provide you the ability to do some things that are a little more advanced, either on a technical side or a design side, if you're comfortable with that kind of thing. We felt like these three themes would fit the bill for all three of those use cases. We are always looking to turn on more themes for you guys, and it took a while for us to bring in a front-end developer, but I'm happy to say we do have a person on staff now who's a front-end developer and has WordPress experience, so we're hoping to turn some more themes on for you guys here shortly. Other things to know about your design options: all of the themes will have the same plugin options, which will extend your site's functionality. So if a plugin is available in one theme, it's available in all of the themes, and that's always going to be the case. The same thing for the widgets. If there's a widget available in one theme, it's going to be available across all of the themes that are available on the service. And then the final thing about each of these themes that I failed to mention was that the home page can either support a blog feed, a traditional blog feed of your blog post, or it can support just showing a static message on the home page. So if you just wanted to have a message up there that didn't change based off of the date of publication, each one of these themes will support doing that as well. Are there any questions at this time? All right. So still talking a little bit about design, we often get asked questions about the photos and the graphics that are available on these sites. These websites, they're self-serve, and I don't think I mentioned that before. So what that really means is once we turn the website on and kind of give you access, it's your responsibility now to populate the site, to stand it up, to do all of the configurations, to add your users, all of those things. You're the site owner, and it's your responsibility to do those things, and that extends to the photos and the graphics. So there are some options for you, though. We're not just going to leave you completely off to without any resources. For photos, you can submit a request for an existing photo from the university photographers. They do keep a library of all of the photos that they take, so you can just submit that request by clicking on this link, and I'll also provide this in the follow-up resources, which will take you to a form where you can basically just let them know what it is you're looking for. And then they will pull together a small collection for you and share a link with you where you can then download those images and use them as necessary. If you wanted a graphic, and the difference between a photo and a graphic is really just something that has to be photoshopped to some capacity, maybe adding some text to it or some kind of effect to the lighting, things along those lines. That's when you start getting into graphics. And for that, you'll need to submit a design project request. A project manager will be assigned to your request and will reach out to you with more information and next steps. This is a billable request. That's something to keep in mind. The current billable rate is $65 an hour, and they bill on 15-minute increments. So if it takes your project, 10 minutes, you'll get billed for 15 minutes. If it takes your project 21 minutes, you will probably get billed for 30 minutes. But there might be some discretion there on the side of the design team. But just know that if it doesn't take a full hour, you won't have to pay for a full hour, but there will be a billable charge. Some of the things we see design requests come in for is for mostly on the academic and administrative side. If a logo is requested, those are things that the design team can help you do to make sure that your logo is compliant with the university's visual identity standards and guidelines. We never really want you guys to go out and take the official GW logo and kind of customize something. There are standards for how the logo can be used, so we want to make sure that if you're planning to use the GW logo, you do go through marketing and creative services, because they'll make sure that essentially that you're doing it in the right way and representing the university in a way that's appropriate with use of our logo. Any questions on that? Okay. So I've mentioned website accessibility a couple of times, and what that means as far as making your website accessible is ensuring that it's accessible to anybody, no matter what type of device they're using or browser that they're using. Websites are processed differently for people using assistive devices, and usually this means a screen reader, but that can also mean somebody who maybe has mobility issues and can only navigate websites using a keyboard or maybe a specialized mouse attached to a wheelchair, something along those lines. So we want to make sure that even for these users, they're able to get through your website in an intuitive manner that's not too difficult either, and that they're able to absorb the information on your website as well. I actually just see a question came through about pictures. Can we add our own images, meaning pictures that we took? Yes, of course. You can. If you have pictures of your own, you're absolutely welcome to upload those images to your site. And another question is, can the graphics team do infographics? They can do infographics. So if that is something that you'd like to add to your website, absolutely, that's something that they can do for you. Are there any other questions? I want to make sure we cover everything. Okay. So again, for website accessibility, you want to make sure that regardless of how somebody might be coming to your website, they're able to navigate through your site intuitively and without difficulty, and they're also able to take in that information the same way that somebody who didn't have to use one of these devices would be able to. And so typically what that means for you as site owners and content managers is making sure that on all of your images you're providing what's called descriptive alt tags. If somebody cannot see a photo for whatever reason, the descriptive alt tag will be read aloud to them if they're using a screen reader, and this will allow them to know what's going on in that photo or in that graphic. So if you have a headshot of a person, you can just put that person's name. That's absolutely fine. But if you have maybe like a photo at an event, you need to be describing what's going on in that photo. And a lot of people stumble with this one because it can get kind of difficult to understand, what should I be putting in here? So sometimes people will just put the file name, but if you had your eyes closed and somebody just read that file name to you, it's very likely you would have no idea what was going on. So putting in the event name is not a descriptive alt tag in that case. You want to say, students at the Smith Center cheering on a performance, something along those lines. Really put yourself in the position of somebody who can't see what's going on in that image, and imagine that you had to describe it to them in about 10 words or less. That's what your alt text needs to be on your images. Now, if your image has text in it, you actually need to put what that text is in your alt tag field. So this is actually why we say never to use posters as alt text. For one thing, not only are they bad for accessibility, but just imagine if you were on a phone and somebody had a poster up on as the image on their web page, the chance that you could actually read it is pretty slim because everything gets scaled down and it's just not legible anymore. So that's one reason why we say don't use posters as images on your site to convey critical information. And then for the accessibility side, all of the text that's in that photo, in that poster, needs to be put into the alt text field. And that's going to get pretty unusable pretty quickly for somebody who has to rely on a screen reader to read that text aloud to them. So instead, you should be putting that critical information within the text of your page, and then just allow that image to be decorative, essentially. So yeah, anytime you have a graphic with text in it, all of the text in that graphic needs to be in the alt text field in order for that image to pass accessibility. Something else you need to do as a site owner and a content manager is to use your subheads effectively, so using them to define the content topics on your page, not for visual appeal or prominence. A lot of times we have something that we want to really make sure somebody sees when they get to your page, so we'll make it really big and bold and maybe different colors and underline it and put all sorts of special characters around it. And if I'm cited and I can see the web page, I can see it and I can say, okay, I saw that. However, if I have not placed what's called subhead styles on that text and I cannot see this page because maybe I'm colorblind or fully blind, whatever the case might be, and I'm relying on an assistive device to read the subheads on the page for me, all of that formatting that you did to that text isn't going to matter. My screen reader is going to skip over it completely because what it's looking for is the subhead style. So you need to make sure that when you have content topics on your page, you're using the subhead styles to define what those content topics are. And on the other side of that, if you are using the subhead style just on regular paragraph text, you don't want to do that because, again, going back to that assistive device that might be reading just the subheads for me on the page, if I get to this paragraph that's been completely styled as a subhead, I'm now forced to listen to that entire paragraph, even if it has nothing to do with what I'm trying to do on the page. And that actually can be a hit for the university from an accessibility standpoint. So you want to make sure that you're not using those subhead styles for decoration and just to like visually draw somebody's eye to something. You're using it to define the content topics on your page. You also want to avoid using too many moving elements. This can be really distracting for users who maybe have cognitive disabilities and struggle to keep their focus on a page. So if you have a lot of things moving around on the page, it can be really difficult for them to keep their focus on the page and to get and find the information that you need or that they need. The other thing that can happen, depending on how that moving element is coded, there's something called focus that screen readers have, which basically says this is the thing that I'm focusing on the page right now. And so if you have like a rotator at the top of your page and you have multiple items in that rotator, the focus on the screen reader might get stuck on that rotating element every time it flips to a new slide. And imagine if you have 2 or 3 rotators on your page, that can get really frustrating for a user who has to rely on an assistive device that keeps going back up to this rotating element because the focus keeps going back to it. So that's something that you want to keep in mind. Too many moving elements on the page can be disruptive for somebody with a cognitive disability, and it can be hard to get past for somebody who might be relying on an assistive device. You also want to avoid colors with low contrast against your background. A lot of people, one of the things they like to do when they get access to their site is start changing up the fonts and things like that, which is fine. But if you're picking colors that have low contrast, so you maybe have a light background and a fairly light shaded font on light shaded color on your font, somebody who is low vision or potentially colorblind, they might not actually even be able to read your web page. So that's something that you want to keep in mind as well when you start playing around with the various colors. And this also goes to picking background colors for your site. You might think, oh, these 2 colors look really pretty together, but if it was put up against a technical test for accessibility, it might not actually pass. So all of these people who are low vision or potentially have colorblind issues that they're dealing with, they might not be able to read your website at all if you've been changing the colors to different colors that don't have enough contrast behind them. So the next thing that we're going to do, we're actually going to go into the back end of a website. So if you would like to follow along and just watch what I'm doing, you're free to do so. But if you would actually want to log in and kind of click around along with me, what you'll want to do is go to blogs.gw.edu. There is a login link in the navigation. You'll click on that. And from there, you will log in. There's going to be a button that says Use NetID. Click on that button, and you'll use your GW NetID username and password to log in. So I'm actually going to do that now. Okay. And are you all still able to see my screen? You should be seeing the GW Blogs main website homepage right now. I'm
Yes.
just going to click on, oh, thank you. I'm going to click on the login button here, and then you'll click on Use NetID. And I'm going to use my team's organizational account. We don't really use it for anything other than training you guys. And so once you get logged in, you will be taken to this dashboard. It's basically called the Reader. It's going to show you any blog posts that you've posted recently. Those will all get listed here. You'll also see at the top the main Campus Press GW Blogs admin bar. And this will always be visible to you while you're logged in. And then over here on the left-hand side, this is your dashboard menu here. So you can see that dashboard is highlighted right here, and here are all of the various options that you can get into to manage your website. And so If you hover over your site name, and this is very likely going to be your personal net ID, you'll get this option that says Visit Site in the drop-down. So you can just click on that to actually see your home page. Now, for me, I have been playing around in this a little bit, so there's no content. That's why I'm getting this error message. It's basically saying there's nothing to show here. You all might have a sample post up there if this is your first time ever logging in, or if you've logged in previously and played around with content, you might have something, some content that's actually showing here. But essentially, the first thing that you're going to see is this very plain Jane looking homepage. And so often we get asked, okay, well, I want to change the theme of my website. How do I do that? So to change the theme on your site, you have a couple of ways that you can do it. It all gets down to getting to the themes section of your dashboard. If you hover over your site name again, you'll now see an option for dashboard and themes, as well as widgets and menus. We're going to go ahead and click on themes. And this is where you will see the themes that are available to you. Now, again, if this is your personal site, you're only going to see the unofficial versions. If this is an official version of a website, you're going to see the 3 unofficial ones, and then you're going to see what looks like duplicates of them with the moniker official. And again, the only thing that's going to be different between the official and unofficial version is that footer content. You're either going to get the official GW logo as well as our institutional links if it's an official GW Blogs website. If this is a personal site for an individual like we're working on today, and you have those unofficial versions of the site, you will get the disclaimer down there in the footer, which you can see here. So I'm going to go back to themes. The theme that we're looking at right now, which is turned on for every site by default when it's activated, is the Tiny Framework theme. This theme basically is characterized by being really good for just a simple, clean website or blog layout. You'll get a banner there at the top that you can have that's a static banner, meaning it doesn't rotate or anything like that. It just sits there, and it will display across all of the pages of your website. At the very top, you have space to put your site name and a little slogan if you would like to. You don't have to. You'll also have space above your banner for your navigation bar. And then beneath that is where it will start to get into your website content, whether that's your blog post or a static message from a page deeper in your site. And then it has a single right sidebar where you can have additional information show up in the form of widgets, and we'll take a look at those in just a moment. So again, we felt like this was a really good, clean, simple site for somebody who just quickly wanted to stand up a website, wasn't really interested in doing too much on the design side, really just wanted to get the information out, and needed to stand up something very quickly, essentially. So that's your Tiny Framework theme. The next theme is the GW Ward theme, and so this one relies a little bit less on imagery than the other 2 themes, but we felt like it was a one that kind of bridged the gap between being pretty modern and being pretty traditional. So at the top of this one, over in the upper left, you have the ability to put your site name and, again, a slogan if you would like. You can see that your navigation is at the top, and this will always be in this GW blue bar. It's got the yellow rollover state. This space right here, called the jumbo headline, it's optional to use. You can change it, the text there, so that it says whatever you want it to say. The important thing to note is that it will show up across every page of your website. So if you put something in that jumbo headline space, it is going to be on every single page of your website. If you don't use it, all of your website content will just shift up to fill in this empty space. And then beneath that, you can see here we've got this GW Cyan bar, and this is where your widgets will actually display. So if you decide to have an archive display, recent posts, recent comments, things along those lines, and you're using the widgets to do that, they will display in this blue bar. But just like the jumbo headline, if you choose not to display any widgets, this blue space will also collapse and will just disappear off the website. Your users will not see it, and instead your website will just start with your content, whether that be your blog post or be a static feed of your website. And I can show you guys a couple examples, and I should do the same for a Tiny Framework. So let's do that. Let's start with Tiny Framework. Here's a couple examples of sites in the wild, so to speak, that are using the Tiny Framework theme. So we've got GW Research Days here. You see the site name, the slogan that they've elected to use. Here's their navigation. And they have a banner there at the top, and they've chosen to have I think a feed of blog posts. It's a pretty long blog post, but I do believe that's a feed of blog posts. They have a couple of items in their sidebar, including their Twitter feed. And then if you go all the way down to the bottom of their site, that's when you actually start to see the institutional's logo and the institutional links that I mentioned before. So that's Research Days. Another site that's using this particular theme is the Faculty Senate. So you can see, again, navigation at the top. They just have their site name without a slogan, a simple image to serve as the banner, and then they just get directly into their content. And they've just made it, a nice, clean, simple site so that users can come here, get the information that they need, not really get distracted by anything else, and it gets the job done that they needed to get done. So with the...
I've got a question. So is it possible where we can have the GW blog, but then restrict certain areas of that site?
Yeah, absolutely. That's essentially private pages and private posts. So I will try to make a note to show you guys how we do that when we get into actually creating pages and posts, how to make those private. But definitely you can do that. And good, we are still on the Faculty Senate site. I think this site has a few private sections. So yeah, you see right here where it says login required. This is a page on their site that they have made private. And so it requires a password, which has been shared with the appropriate people who have permission to be on here. Once they put in that password and click enter, they'll be able to see that content.
Okay, cool. That's exactly what I was looking for. Thanks.
Good. What was the other theme we were looking at? We were looking at Ward. So again, the GW Ward theme, it's not designed to have like a header banner or anything like that. However, that's obviously something most people like to do. So the site I'm about to show you does have a banner up at the top, but this was something that they actually custom did themselves. So that's just something to keep in mind, and I hope I'm typing that in correctly. I am. So the Center for Real Estate and Urban Analysis, they have somebody on staff who's comfortable working with CSS, which is cascading style sheets in web design. So they were able to customize this theme to get a banner up here. If they did not have this banner here, the site would start and it would look like this. The other option that they would have is to put their name in the jumbo headline space to use as the site title, which I believe, let me see if I can, yeah. So this is Professor Stuart Umpleby's personal website, and he's using the same theme. You can see that he's elected to use that jumbo headline space to put his name there. He's also got his navigation at the top. Subpages, you just have to click into it. You can see there's a little caret to let your users know there's more information. Then the sub-navigation will show. He just has the one widget that's displaying here. If it didn't have this widget in this space, this area would collapse, and then it would just get into his site's information. He has a static message on his home page, just as the Center for Real Estate and Urban Analysis does. So these are just a couple examples of how two of the themes that are currently available are being used by site owners. And then the third theme is the GW White theme. And this one is the only theme that supports out of the box having a logo in the header. You then have just some simple navigation here above a rotating banner section. And this is also the only theme with a rotating banner out of the box. And then down below, when it gets into the site content, you can either have your blog content show up and it will display that blog content in a grid of images. So this theme does require that you have images show up on each one of your blog posts because they will get displayed here. If you don't have an image on the blog post, you're going to actually have, your users will see a broken image there instead. It supports one or two sidebars on the right-hand side over here. The difference being if you choose for your home page to be a blog feed, the way that this one is set up, you're going to get two sidebars. If you choose for it to show a static message instead that doesn't change from one of your website pages, then you're actually only going to have one sidebar show up here. That's something that I recently learned. I think it's a little bit of a weird tick, and we're going to see if it's something that our developer can make as an option for you guys. But out of the box, the way that it works right now is if you have blog feed on your home page, you're going to have two sidebars. If you have a static message on your home page, you're only going to have one sidebar. So I'm going to show you the, I don't know how to say that, so I'm not going to try. I'm just going to go to their website. Um, this is the Elliott School's Institute for European, Russian, and Eurasian Studies. They're using the GW White theme, and they're also using a couple of plugin options. But you can see they put their institute logo in the header, and the space expanded to fit and fill that, and which highlighted a bug that we have with these social media icons that we're going to have our developer fix so that they stay fixed with the body content of the site. And then they have their navigation. Again, it's got the drop down with the cyan and the yellow rollover. They are using the homepage rotator. They've elected not to have any captions on it. If there was a caption, that would show up in this space here between the arrows. And then they're actually using a plugin that we'll talk about called Divi Builder in the back end of the site that allows them to customize what their page layouts look like. So they've got this really nice, dynamic, but clean looking layout on their homepage. And we've had a lot of people give them a lot of compliments that they deserve on the layout and function of their site. So we'll definitely take a look at the Divi Builder plugin so you guys can kind of see what that looks like on the back end and how it works. I think it's one of the best plugins personally in the platform. But yeah, that's just a quick walkthrough of the three themes that are available, some examples of the themes being used by other site owners. Um, Oh, there's a question. So for departmental accounts, do we have to check in with our creative services before changing the theme? No, you guys can change the theme at your own discretion, and you're not going to lose any content if you start working on your website in one theme and then decide I want to change to something else. You're not going to lose any content. All of your content is going to stay with your site, but you might find that you need to do some cleanup because as you've seen from theme to theme, things shift around as far as where they get displayed, and sometimes something that's supported in one spot is not supported in the same location in the other, or in the case of with the hero banner, obviously it's supported on a static hero banner is supported in Tiny Framework. No banner is supported in the GW Word theme, and then the GW White theme actually supports a rotating banner. So that's something where you might have to go in there and do a little bit of content cleanup just to get that home page hero area looking the way that you want it to, but you shouldn't actually lose any content. Nothing should get deleted. Um, are there any other questions about the themes? You're welcome. All right. So I'm going to go back into my site, and I'm going to stick with Tiny Framework. I'm not actually going to change it, and I'm going to do a couple of things. The first thing that we're going to do is talk about the difference between pages and posts. This is the second thing that I think I see a lot of people trip up with the most. The thing to know with your posts, these are blog posts basically. They're dated content that will go into a feed chronologically in reverse order. So the older a blog post is, the further down in your feed it's going to display until it eventually drops off once it hits that maximum number of blog posts per page to show. If you want something to always show up um, on your website, I'm sorry, if you want a message to always be available on the homepage of your website, in that case, you want that to be actually a page. Your pages, they are static, they're evergreen. They're not meant to change based off of the publication date of that item. And they're really things that you shouldn't be changing too often either. So think about like your about page, if you're talking about yourself or your center, institute, lab, whatever the case might be. That information really shouldn't change that much. It should be static and evergreen, something that your users can come back to, and that message is not going to change. The other difference between the two is because your blog posts are supposed to be somewhat interactive with people who visit your website, you have the ability to allow users to comment on your blog posts. They cannot comment on your web pages. And then you can also assign categories to your blog posts so that you can have specialized feeds, so to speak, that are just about a specific topic, which you cannot do with your pages. So that's really the difference between the two. Your pages are really supposed to be your web pages that are sort of static, not so much set in stone, but pretty evergreen as far as the content that's in them, and they're not going to fall off of any feeds or lists. They're always going to be visible to your users when they click on your home page or to get to one of the landing pages from your navigation, whereas your blog post will be displayed in a feed in reverse chronological order, and the older a post is, the further down in that feed is going to be until eventually it gets booted off off of the home page or blog post feed, whatever it might be, and then it will only show up in your archive if you choose to display an archive. So I'm going to create a page really quickly and just kind of show you guys what the fields are. So you have your title field. I'm going to say Natasha's Blogs 101 page. Once you title your page, a permalink gets assigned immediately. So it's going to be blogs.gvu.edu/your.netid, and then it's going to pull from whatever you titled the page. If you want to have something more custom, you can click on that edit button, and it will allow you to customize just the portion that's coming from the title of your page. You cannot customize the portion that comes before that, which is the blogs.gwu.edu/whatever your net ID is. That's always going to be the first part of any link on your website. But if you wanted to customize what, again, the portion that came in from the title is, you can customize that. And so then the next thing that you're going to see basically is your text editor. It's a pretty simple text editor with some basic options that look pretty familiar from a lot of word processing services that we use, like Microsoft Word, things along those lines. You might not have all of the options that I'm seeing here, and if not, you just want to hit this toggle toolbar icon. This is something that I learned also earlier this year, that if you click on that, you get just a few more options to do just a little bit more. So I like to make sure that I always have this toggle toolbar icon selected so that I can see all of the options in my website. In the text editor. So I'm just going to go to a website called lipsum.com to get some simple dummy text that we can use in today's session. And I'm just going to grab these first two paragraphs and go back in here, and I'm just going to click Control V. And it's really that simple. You can put your text in there like that. If you needed to create a link, you would just highlight the text that's going to serve as your link. This goes back to accessibility. You always want to be making your links contextual. You never want to say, click here for more information and have the words click here be the link, or to say click here for more information and then paste in the link that you want people to go to. Both of those are bad for accessibility, because for a screen reader, if I say just read me the links on this page, it's going to read to me the words that you've selected to be the link. So if you've selected click here to be your link, all I'm going to hear is click here. It's not going to tell me anything about where that link is actually going to take me to if I click on it. And if you have typed or pasted in the link as in, www.gwu.edu, depending on my screen reader, it's either going to try and read this aloud letter by letter, or it might actually try and read it as a single word, and in either case, it's not accessible for me. I have no idea what that website is, and I don't know if it's what I actually need. So you always want to make sure that you make your links contextual, and that just means that whatever you say you're linking to, whatever action it is that you're telling your users to take, those are the words that you actually make the link. So if I'm linking to the main university's website, I'll put the George Washington University. Of course, I can't type when everybody's watching me. And I can make this full sentence the link. I can just make the university's name the link. What's important is that when somebody hears these words aloud, George Washington University, and then it takes them to the main university website, that makes sense. They understand these were the words that I used to describe the link, and it actually took me to something that was related to what I highlighted as the link. So just to be fully accessible, I'm going to highlight all 5 of those words, and then I'm going to click my Insert Edit Link icon, and you'll get this really easy to use, type or paste in option here, and so you can do just that and then click Apply. You also have the ability, I'm going to unlink that and do that again. If you click on this Link Options gear icon, you'll get a slightly expanded window. And again, you can put your URL in here just like you did before. Or if you've got existing pages on your website, you can select them from down here. You just click on the name of the page that you want to link to. That URL field will get filled in for you. And then you just click Add Link. But I'm going to link outside to the main university website. So I'm going to put the full thing in. We always recommend, though, that you paste these in so that you avoid any typos. Since this is going to an external website, it's not within my own personal blog website, I'm going to set it to open that link in a new tab. I'm just going to click on Add Link, and now I've got my hyperlink. If I wanted to have images in my blog post, I have a couple of options. So wherever your cursor is, when you're in the text editor, that's where your image is going to get added. So put your cursor where you want your image to be, then you can click on that Add Media button, and then if you have images uploaded already, you'll see your media library. If you do not have any, you'll get this Upload File option, and you can select an image from your desktop and proceed as usual. So this is one way to add an image. You can, once you select an option, excuse me, select an image, you'll get the details for that image over here. Um, I have a title that I applied to it. I put a caption in there already. This is where that alt text field will be displayed, so you'll be describing what's going on in that photo. So I've got my alt text that says, a patron views an art installation at the Brady Art Gallery. And if you wanted to use the description box, you could do that as well. I don't think you really need to at that point. You also have some options as far as what's going to happen when that image is in your page. You can set alignment on it, so if it's left, center, or right. You can also say if it links to something. By default, I think it links to itself, which is kind of weird. So if somebody were to click on that image, basically a new browser tab would open and they would just see that image again. So I typically will say link to nothing, but you can put in custom URL and link it to a website if you would like to. I'm not going to do that in this case. And then you can also set a size on it if you would like to, as far as how big the image is going to display. You can see it's a pretty large image in my site, so I can adjust that to be something smaller, and then say insert into page. And then I get my image loaded there. So that's the standard way to get an image in. This is just going to be an image that's inline in the text. Keep that in mind. If you wanted something to basically be like the featured image on your page or your blog post, you actually want to use this featured image option down here. So you would say set featured image, and you would go through the same exercise as far as selecting an image, making sure all of the description fields are filled in as necessary. Going to delete that space, looks a little weird. And then once you're ready to publish, you have a couple of options. So if you don't want it to be a public page, you would click Save as Draft, and you can see right here that the status for this is draft. If you are ready for it to go, you can just click Publish. You can see it would publish immediately. If you wanted this to be, if this was like a blog post, for instance, you could actually predate the blog post, so get it ready to go ahead of time, and then click on that edit option next to where it says publish immediately and put in a specific date when you want it to go live, and then click publish. And on that day and the time, because there are time fields as well, that's when the post will actually be available to the public. And then you also have those options that we were asked about earlier for the visibility of something. The default obviously is public, but if you click that edit option, you have the ability to say this is a password protected page, so only those users who know whatever the dedicated password is that I'm assigning right here can see this page. Or you can just say it's a private page, and in that case it can only be seen by somebody who has back-end access to your website. That, I hope that answers the question that that was asked earlier when we were looking at the Faculty Senate website. That's how you would make a page on your website private. I'm going to leave mine as a public page, and I'm going to say publish immediately, and go ahead and click that publish page. The backend page is just going to refresh. It's not going to take you to look at your new page. You either need to click here where it says view page, or up in your admin where it says view page. And it will do just that. It will take you to the front end so you can see what your page actually looks like. And so that's basically how it works when you want to create a page. You can see that there are no dates on this page. There's no ability to comment on this page, nothing like that. It's just a static evergreen page that's just going to exist. The user's going to click on it, be able to read it, get the information that they need, do any tasks that they need to do based off of links that I might have provided, and that's really the purpose that this page serves. If I wanted to create a blog post, I could do that now in a couple of ways. I could go back to my dashboard and go to the post section, but you'll also notice there's this new icon in the admin bar there, and I can just use that as a shortcut to create a post. I'm not going to go through the exercise of creating a blog post now just because all of the fields are pretty similar to what we already saw. The difference being that you'll have some options over here for how you want your blog post to be formatted. I only ever use standard, and I have once used link because I needed to create some quick links for somebody. But I really don't know what all of the rest of these do. So I encourage you guys to definitely play around with them, find uses for them if necessary to work on your website. Don't be afraid of trying them out. And then you also have the ability here, as I mentioned before, to apply categories to your blog post. So if I wanted to post this blog post and say that it's a category of Blogs 101, I could create a custom Blogs 101 feed on my site, and only those posts that have been tagged with Blogs 101 would show up in that feed. I could also create a new category here if the one that I needed was not already available. And you can also apply tags that would work in a pretty similar manner, so that if somebody was searching for specific tags on your site, content that have been tagged with these specific tags, this would be how they could, how those items would actually be indicated in the back end of your website. So, but yeah, right now I've got a pretty vanilla site. I've just got these two little lonely pages that I've created and nothing on my home page. But I did create some stuff ahead of time, so I'm going to go back to my dashboard and go to all posts, and I'm just going to start publishing everything. You can see they all say that they're in draft mode. So I'm going to publish all of them so you can see what it looks like when they're published. And see both actions, edit, apply, and where's my status? Status is published. And so now when I visit my home page, I've got all of these lovely blog posts. And you can see the date when they were posted. They all got auto-dated for today because this is the date that they got posted to the public. If I wanted to go into each one of them and adjust that publication date so that it would be staggered a little bit more realistically, I could definitely do that as well. The next thing I'm going to do is actually, I think I have a few pages. So I'm going to publish those as well. These I'm going to have to do manually. So I'm going to unfortunately have to go into each one of these and manually say to publish. And now when I go look at my home page, I can see each one of these new pages that I created. They're automatically getting added to my navigation, but I'm going to show you guys how we can actually manage that so it's showing the navigation as I want it to be shown. But now my website's starting to take shape. I've got some navigation showing up. I've got some content going on my home page. And now maybe I want to put a banner up here. So to do that, I'm going to go to Customize. And this is where you're going to do the vast majority of the layout customization for your site. So the first thing that I'm going to do is give my site an identity. My site's identity is online strategy, and then there's a tagline of just another GW website. Because this display site title and tagline checkbox is not checked, it's not displaying. But the moment I check it, it displays up here. So if I didn't want to do a graphic, I could say, okay, I'm done. This is all I'm going to do for this website as far as identifying whose site that it's on. What we often see users actually do, though, is leave that unchecked and instead create a header image. And so I'm just going to click Add a new image, and I believe this image is the right size. Nope. Maybe. We'll try this one. So I can see that there's the URL for the image. Here's the title for it, which is not that great, so we're going to change that to George's birthday bonfire. We can see the alt text, GW George mascot in front of a bonfire, which is a pretty good description of what's going on there. And I'm going to say select and crop because that's the image, but I'm going to say skip cropping because it looks like it's actually pretty good as far as the dimensions that it needs to be. And now I can see the image on my website. And so for this particular theme, it is a static image. It does not allow for rotation, but something that it does allow for, and I wish I could remember the site that does it, but it allows you to upload multiple image banners and then click this option that says randomize uploaded headers. And what that will do is for every page that loads, every time somebody has a page load on the browser, a different banner will display for them. It's not actually animating anything, it's just picking from the collection that you've uploaded and just randomly displaying one to your user. So that is something that you have the option of doing on this particular theme. So I like the way this looks. I'm going to go ahead and go back and start working a little more on my site. Again, if I feel like this isn't sufficient for describing whose site this is, I can always check that display site title and tagline button. If I don't want that tagline, I can just delete that text and it will go away. So, whoops, didn't mean to do that. Just keep in mind that you do have those options as far as branding your website. The colors option, I'm not going to change the colors, but it's the background color that you see here. Again, please don't change this unless you are comfortable ensuring that whatever colors you choose are going to pass accessibility for one, but that they're also within GW's brand color palette. We want to make sure, especially in the case of websites that purport to be about official university business, that we're staying in brand with the color palette. We don't want to be using colors that are outside of GW's color palette just because we want to make sure that we've got that familiarity and that trust of when users come to the site, they see colors that they've seen across our other web properties and they feel comforted knowing, okay, yeah, this is definitely a GW website because it's got the same colors that this other one had as well. We looked at the header image. You do have the ability to do a background image. I believe all three themes support this option, just like I should mention colors is something in site identity. Those two options are available across all three themes. Your header image is going to vary from theme to theme. Again, Tiny Framework, which we're working on right now, supports it, and GW White supports the rotating images in the header, but GW Ward did not support having header images, so that's something to just keep in mind. All three themes, to my knowledge, do support the background image, so you can put a background image in here if you would like, and you can also say the orientation of what that image is going to be. I believe there's a site called Arctic Pyre. Let me see. That is using it. So you can say what the orientation of your image is going to be. If it's going to be fixed, meaning that it stays where it is as the site scrolls, which they did. So that's kind of an example of how the image gets used if you do elect to put a background image on your site. Menus. We're going to take a look at menus in just a moment. We actually have to create our menu first, and then this admin here would allow us to dedicate where that navigation was going to show up. If we don't set that, the system's just going to kind of automatically fill it in for you based off of its best guess. We'll take a look at widgets in just a moment, but that's the items that show up here in your sidebar, and it's really just about providing a visual space for additional information, whether that be recent blog posts, a Twitter feed, the most recent comments, a calendar of events, things along those lines. You're going to display those items within widgets. And then static front page is the last one we'll take a quick look at. This is where you decide if you want your home page to show a feed of your blog posts or if you want it to show a message from a page on your website that's not going to change no matter what. So if you select static front page, the next thing you need to do is indicate what page do you want to display on your home page. So I'm going to leave it actually set to about online strategy, and we can say this is the message that I want my users to see when they come to my home page. But let's say you still want to have a blog feed on a different page on your website. That next option for post pages, this is where you say, this is the page that's going to serve as the landing page for my blog post. And so accurately, I did previously have latest headlines set to be my blog post page. So now if I go there, I can see that my blog posts are showing here now. If I did not have this option selected, nothing would show on this page. But so this is how you dedicate the landing page for your blog post if it's not going to be your home page. Any questions on that? So someone asked about clarification on pages and blog posts. Pages are static and posts are dated blog post posting. That's exactly it. Your pages are not going to change based off of the date that they were published, meaning that with your blog post, they're going to get slotted into a feed, which you can see here. That feed is going to be based off of your date that you published the item. If multiple items share the same date, it's also then going to look at the granularity of what time they were published. So the one that is the oldest is going to be at the bottom of your list. And I believe the default is you get 10 posts per page. You can adjust that if you would like to. But once you get to that 11th post, whatever the oldest post is, it's going to get booted off the page. And the only way that a user would be able to find it if they didn't have a direct link would be to go to an archive of sorts. So that is one of the differences between your blog post pages and your regular web pages. The other is the ability to leave a comment on a blog post page, whereas your static pages will not allow for that. And then your blog post will also allow you to assign them categories so that users could see just blog posts that are about a specific category that you've designated. So that's the difference between your pages and your posts. So if I like all of these settings that I've applied here under this Customize section, I just click Save and Publish, and that commits all of the different configurations that I've done. If I had just clicked this X, it would have said you've made some changes, but you're about to leave. Are you sure you want to leave? Nothing's going to be saved. And you can either say, yes, I want to leave, or no, I want to save these items first and then actually go through the exercise of saving your changes. Are there any other questions on customizing your site? Okay. So the next thing we're going to take a look at, I'm going to go back into the dashboard, and we're going to look at plugins, and then we'll take a look at widgets because the two are related to each other. So I mentioned this during the presentation, but as a reminder, your plugins enhance the functionality of your website. Your widgets enhance the display, and very often they're used to display your plugins. So all of the sites will have the same plugins available when the site is activated, but you do have to come in here and actually turn the individual plugins on. They're not turned on by default. They're just available for you to use, for lack of a better term. The ones that I recommend turning on for sure are CompFight, Divi Builder, and Formidable Forms. We're not going to have time to look at all three of these today, but I definitely recommend using these three, but you can see that there are obviously a little more than a dozen others that you can activate and use on your site. And truth be told, there's dozens more available on the platform. However, they do not all fall in compliance with the university's policies. So I mentioned earlier you can't use your website to run a business. So any plugins that were related to e-commerce, we did not turn those on because we don't want, people out there taking like credit card information, which is a big, privacy and compliance issue if people are doing that. So we did not allow for any e-commerce type plugins to be turned on. There were other plugins where maybe it required you to have an account on a third-party service, and that account had to be paid or something along those lines, or the service was one that's known to potentially have some security issues. Those are plugins that we also did not enable. If you're familiar with WordPress and familiar with how WordPress plugins work, and you want to use one that you don't see available here, reach out to us at onlinestrategy@gw.edu. We're always happy to take a look to see if it's available on the network already. If it's not, and it's something that we think would be useful to everybody, we can then work with the vendor to see if maybe they'll approve getting it turned on. They're going to want to do their own testing, and they might say, you know what, no, we're not comfortable turning this on our network for whatever their reasons are. And at that point, unfortunately, the answer would just be no. But if they are okay with it and they do turn it on, then you would get access to a new plugin. So never be afraid to ask if you don't see what it is that you're looking for. So I just turned on the Formidable Forms, Divi Builder, and CompFight Save Images plugin. Once you start turning on plugins, a couple of things might happen as far as where you'll see their options show up. The first one being that you might actually start seeing new menu items in your dashboard. So we can see here there's now a new menu item for Formidable. And Formidable Forms allows you to create web forms on your website pages so that people can fill them in, click submit, and do the submission directly in your website. And with Formidable, it puts the options that you need directly in your dashboard menu. With CompFight and with Divi Builder, you will see two things. So with Divi Builder, down here at the bottom, you'll see some sort of global setting options that you would have. So you can say, globally, this is how I want this plugin to work when I'm using it on my website. However, when you're actually creating your content, you're going to see it show up on the individual web pages and blog post pages as you're creating them. And so what Divi Builder allows you to do, and I'll pull up the Elliott School site again, is it allows you to create really dynamic layouts on your page. So to really bust out of the the basicness of the text editor and do something a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more fun on the web page, but still doing it all within just the admin of the single page. So right here we see the basic text editor, but we also see this giant blue use the Divi Builder button. And when you click on that, the text editor gets replaced with the Divi Builder plugin editor instead. And it looks really complicated, but it's not actually that complicated. I know it can seem intimidating. What it's really just asking you to do is to create a table. And within your table, you have your rows and your columns and the individual cells. And within each individual cell, you can put a module that does something fun. So the blue that we have here is indicating the section on the page. This green is indicating a row. And then within that row, you can indicate how many columns that you want. So that's the first thing you do. You just indicate how many columns do I want in this row. So you click on that, and it will show you all the different options that you have for the layout of the columns on your page. You can have the standard, which is a full width going all the way across. Everything's just going to be in one column. You can say I want two columns that are 50-50. Maybe I want two columns where one is 2/3, one is 1/3. Or I want one to be 3/4 and one to be 1/4. Maybe I want 4 items sitting next to each other. It's really entirely up to you how those columns are going to be laid out. So maybe I'm going to start with a 50-50. Once I do that, I can see my 2 columns there, and I can say now that I want to insert a module, and that just means what fun thing do I want to put inside each one of these columns. And you'll see here there's 2 dozen, maybe a little more options, definitely more than 2 dozen options here for the things that you can actually put into each column of the editor now at this point. So maybe you want to start out with some simple text, which you can do down here. And I'm going to go back over here, grab my text again. And you'll get some options as far as, changing the background color, whether it be the standard light background with dark text or reversed out so that it's a dark background with light text. Text orientation, I don't typically change those things up. I just go directly into the text editor and I just click Control V. And my text is in there, and then I can just say save and exit. And now I've got this dark gray bar here showing that I put something there. And then I can move over to the other side and put a new module in there. And so maybe over here I want to put a countdown timer. Let's say countdown to commencement. And then here, this is where you actually put the date for whatever you're counting down to. And I believe commencement is the 20th this year. And you can also indicate the specific time. And I want to say it's at 10 a.m. There's also sliders down here for doing that. I just prefer to type it in. Again, you have the option for saying how you want the text to be, either light background with dark text or dark background with light text. I'm going to leave that alone. If you want a background color, you can say yes or no, and then you can select what that background color is actually going to be. If you say no, as you can see, that option goes away. It gives you the option, I think, on all of the different modules to say if it should be disabled on a specific device. I never change that. I just don't see a reason to. And then I click Done, and I can see now that I've got my 2 items there. And I can continue adding modules, and they'll go into that 50-50 layout that I initially set. Or I can say add a new row, and in this new row it's going to have a different column layout. And that is how Iris, I'm not really sure how to pronounce that, but that's how they got this layout where it goes from this 3/4 and 1/4 immediately followed by 4 items across, so on and so forth, is that they mixed it up as far as per row what the column structure was going to be. So, and that's all you really have to do as well, is just kind of figure out what you want to display on the page and how you want to display it, and then start working with your columns and modules and rows to achieve that layout. If you want to get rid of one, you just click the X and it will go away. And then just like before, you can click that Publish button and then view your page. Oh wait, I didn't actually title my page. Oh goodness, Divi Builder page. All right, now we're going to update that. And we're going view my page, and we can see here I've got all of that text, that lovely, lovely text. And it says countdown to commencement here. Because I've got that sidebar there, things are getting a little bit squished. So if I wanted to get rid of that, I would say for the template, instead of the default template, a full page template with no sidebar. And this template option is going to vary from theme to theme, so that's something to keep in mind. You might not have the ability to suppress a sidebar on one of the other themes, but I know on this one you definitely can. So I'm going to go back and say view page, and now that sidebar is gone, and my text and my countdown timer have a little more breathing room. So that is how you would use the Divi Builder plugin. And then for that Comp Fight Images plugin, let's create another page. Or let's do a post this time, just for fun. And we're going to call it Natasha's Comp Fight Post Page. Or blog post. And so for this one, and you'll see now that there's actually two additional buttons. The first one being formidable. If I had created a form, it would be assigned a form ID number. I would click on this button, and that would allow me to add the form to this page. But obviously I haven't created a form, so nothing's going to be there. But sitting right next to that is the Comp Fight button. So again, I'm going to go in here, grab some text, paste that into my text editor, and then where my cursor is now, I'm going to click that Comp Fight button. And what this allows me to do, very often when people just want to quickly grab an image and they don't have one available either from their personal stock or maybe they don't have time to reach out to the university photographers, they'll just steal one off the internet. And we really don't want you guys doing that. So if you use this Comp Fight plugin, what it's actually going to do for you is to search the internet for free to use images that the artist who took the photo, the photographer who took the photo, has allowed to be used free of use. All you have to do is search for photos by whatever applicable keyword applies to the images that you need. So I can say puppies. Or we'll just do puppy. And it's going to do a search for me for any images that it believes match up with the keyword that I searched in there. And then I can just come in here, find the picture of the puppy that I want, like this cute little guy. I can say I want a small version, medium, large, or the full-size version, depending on how I want images to show up on my website. So we're going to say we want a large version of him. Where'd he go? There he is. And once it drops it in, you're going to see a couple of things. You'll see the photo, obviously, but you will also see, it's just taking a minute to render because it's so big, a link out to the photographer, and you'll see a link out to the Comp Fight plugin developer as well. I tend to delete that one and just leave the call out to the photographer. You don't want to delete the reference back to the photographer because that's the whole point. You're getting free use of this photo. The only thing that they're asking you to do is to give them proper citation. So once you have that image in there, you can edit the size of it by just highlighting the photo and then adjusting that box, and everything will move with you. Or you also have the ability, I believe, you get some options here to say align it left, right, left, center, or right, and then there's also some edit options in there as well. So you do have some simple editing options in there, but if you're happy with what you've got there, you can just click Published, and now you've got this high-resolution image from a professional photographer that you didn't have to steal it off the internet because they said it's free to use so long as I get proper citation for my work. So we are definitely big fans of the Comp Fight Images plugin. I recommend everybody turn it on and use it on their website. Any questions about this plugin or anything basically at this point? Okay. So then the next thing that I'm going to run through with you guys is the menus. I see we've got about 10 minutes left, so I want to show you how you can set up the menu on your site. And I think after that, that's the full agenda, so we'll just kind of have it open for Q&A if there's anything that I haven't gone through. So I just went from my site name to the shortcut. If I go back, I'll show you guys again. So hovering over my site name, I went to the shortcut for menus. You can also get to it from dashboard, and it's going to be under the appearance section. And so when your site is turned on, you don't have any navigation set up on the site. Again, it's going to kind of look as you create your pages and automatically slot them into your menu based off of what it thinks your navigation should be. But obviously, you probably have a pretty good idea of what you want your navigation to be. So to make that come to life, all you have to do is come to this section and you create a new menu. Now, I created one for social media links to highlight something to you guys for in a moment. And I recommend that if you are planning to have social media on your site, you do the same thing. Create a menu called social media links and use the custom link option here to link out to all of your different social media profiles. And I'll show you how you can use that in just a moment. But to create the site navigation, I'm going to click on this Create New Menu, text link right here. And I'm just going to call it Primary Navigation. And you can call it whatever you need to call it to make sense to you. So once I click that Create Menu link, the next thing that I need to do is just select what items do I want to actually show up in that navigation. And you have multiple options here. You can pick from the pages that you've been creating, the blog post pages you've been creating. If you've been using projects, which I never have, I honestly don't even know what they are, you can pick from those. You can also create custom links where you're saying, go directly to this URL. So I'm going to create a home link by grabbing the URL from my website. So that's the https://blogs.gwu.edu/online strategy. And I'm going to say that link text is going to be home, and then I'm going to say add to menu. And then we can see it got added over here, and it's letting me know right there that it's a custom link. If I wanted to link to categories or any of these other options here, I could choose those as well. But I'm going to go back up to the pages option and start adding in links to the pages that I created. So research, latest headlines, contact, and I have my about page serving as my static home page, so I'm going to leave that as is. And then I'm just going to say add to menu. And now I can see these are the links that are going to show up in my navigation. If I don't like the order of these items, I can just drag and drop them. If I wanted one to be a subpage, I could just pull it in so it gets indented. If I didn't want it to be, and you can see when you do that, it does say sub-item on it. If I did not want it to be a subpage, I can just pull it right back out. And if I'm happy with what I see here, I can just say Save Menu. You'll also see that there's some options down here for menu settings. You can auto-add pages as you create them. I never use that because you don't always want a page that you've created to be in your navigation, but that is an option. But I'm going to go ahead and say Save Menu. And so I'm going to go back to visit my home page, and you can see that nothing has changed. And that's because even though I created that menu, I haven't told my site what to display in my navigation. So it's still just taking everything that I've created and throwing it into the navigation bar. So the next step is to tell the site actually what navigation needs to show up where. So I'm going to click on that Customize option, and I'm going to go back to that menu panel that we did not select before. And you can see now I've got primary navigation and social media links here, but the first option is menu locations. So it wants to know for the primary menu, which is this one, what do I want to show? There's nothing selected right now, but I'm going to select primary navigation, and now it's going to show the custom menu that I just made. Now the other one, that social links menu, down in this particular theme at the bottom of the page, I know that there's a space for showing social media icons. So if I click that custom menu that I created for social links, now those social media icons are going to show up there. This is something I believe is available on this theme. There's a version of it available on the GW White theme. Those links will get shown in the top in the tabs. I do not know off the top of my head if it's available in GW Ward, but again, you have other avenues for showing your social media. If it's not available as a custom menu option there, you can use sidebar widgets in that case instead. But I always like to make sure that I have that menu created just in case the theme that I'm using does support it. So now I can say to save my menu, and now I've got the custom menu that I created. On my home page, my static About Online Strategy page is showing as my static home page. I've got my social media links down at the bottom, clicking off to those accounts as necessary. And then if I go to latest headlines, my blog posts are displaying on this page, including my latest one for my comp fight, cute puppy. Um, let's see. I believe that is everything that I had on the agenda, but I want to make sure if you guys have any questions for anything that maybe I haven't covered yet. Is there anything? Okay, so there is a question about support, which is perfect because we have that slide up now. So again, with this service, it is a self-serve service. So once we give you access to the site, and it's your site now, you're responsible for getting your content in there, doing all of your configurations, deciding what the layout is, coming up with the strategy and all of that. And I know that that can sound very overwhelming. There are a number of options that you have for support. The first one is the support page on the services, on the home page of the service. So I'm going to go back to um, blogs.gwu.edu. And if you go to the support page, there are a number of links starting with some basic tasks that you might need to do. So number one, how do you even log into the blog service? The difference between posts and pages, publishing your content, editing your content, changing your theme, and then setting up your menus and reordering your pages. All of those items are listed here for you under the basics. And then it moves into some more advanced things. So managing the comments on your blog post, how to manage images, audio, and things along those lines. Adding users, that's a big one. I can actually show you guys that right now. So if you, on your website, go to your dashboard, and remember, to do this, the person that you want to add as a user on your website has to have sunk, I'm never really sure, but has to have synced their personal GWNet ID to the service in order for you to be able to add them as a user. So if you click on this user tab, you can see all of the users who have access to the back end of your site. And then you have this option where it says add existing. That means that they have to already have their net ID synced to the service. So my net ID has already been synced. I can just start typing it in, and the system is going to look for my name, or it should look for my name. Let me see. Of course, it's not working now. All right, let's do this. jwu.edu. And I can then indicate what level that I want that person to have access to. So do I want them to have full administrative access to the site? Do I want them to just be an editor or an author or subscriber, which is have progressively lower access to the back end of the site? So if I say administrator and then add existing user, it should add that person. Okay, so yeah, it says user has been added to your site. I was expecting it to show me a drop down with my name there, but that's fine that it didn't. But if I now go back to all users, I can see that there I am listed there. If I had tried to add myself and I had never synced my net ID to the service, I would have gotten an error message that basically says this user is not available. I think somebody had a question. How to show menus on the blog post after you save these. I'm not sure if I understand that question about showing menus specifically on your blog posts. If you could maybe type in a few more details, I'd be happy to try and help you out with that. But yeah, so to add a user, always make sure that the person that you are trying to add has first synced their net ID to the service. You type in their email address, select what user role you want them to have, and then click existing. If their account is available in the back end of the site, they will get added to the service. I think they'll also get an email saying that they now have access. If they have not synced their net ID to the service, you'll see an error message when you go to try to add them. So in that case, you just need to reach out to them, make sure that they've logged into GW Blogs at some point with their personal net ID username and password, and then you should be able to add them as a user onto your website. So that is how you add a user. And yeah, that support page again. It's got a number of links to show you tutorials on how to quickly do some of the most common tasks, whether they be falling under the basics or something more advanced. Another option that you have is the EduBlogs user guide. So again, Campus Press is the product, EduBlogs is the vendor, and they have created a pretty thorough user guides for you guys. And anytime that you're in the back end of the website, down at the bottom you can see here it says hosted by Campus Press for training and support. Visit the EduBlog user guide. This is a comprehensive guide for all of the different things that you can do in the service. So you just have to keep in mind, again, that some things have been locked down so that they are in compliance with GW's policy. So you'll see information in here about plugins that you don't have access to and themes that are not available. Um, so just keep that in mind when you are looking through this. But this is a great way to familiarize yourself with how the service works and to learn how to use specific plugins and widgets. I'm constantly in here actually to figure out how to use specific plugins and widgets because there's a lot to try and keep in mind. So you can go directly to this plugins and tools option. There's also a search at the top. Divi Builder, again, one of our most popular ones. So if you search for Divi Builder, I always spell it wrong. It's actually two words. If you search for Divi Builder, you'll get the results for anything with that indicated in there, and then you can just go to the page for that, and it's going to give you a step-by-step walkthrough. In some cases, there will be video, as you see here. In other cases, the developer who specifically developed the plugin that you're using might have more information, so they'll link out to that. If it's something that Campus Press themselves manages, they will put step-by-step information in there for you. So let's see, for instance, managing your media. You can see here there's a number of different options here to talk about how you would manage your media, and they will actually put the tips and information in there for you. So yeah, the EduBlog user guide I think is very, very helpful, and I'm in it all the time. It's how I know how to do basically everything I know how to do in the system at this point. So definitely avail yourselves of that. Again, that link is always available whenever you're in the back end view of your website down at the very bottom of the page. And then finally, as far as getting support from within my office, you can go to our drop-in office hours, which this semester is every Thursday from 10 till noon in the Hall of Government, and you'll be able to sit down with a member of the digital strategy and online strategy team, and they will be happy to help you out with any questions that you might have. They won't be able to give you an end-to-end training. That's something to keep in mind. But if you come in and say, I've been trying to do this one thing, and I'm really having a lot of difficulty with it, they can definitely help you out with that. You can also register for a virtual office hour session. Those are typically hosted with me. They're 15-minute sessions, and you do need to register for them. So you just go to online strategy at gwu.edu. Click this button right here. You can see they're available daily from 11 to noon. Again, they're 15-minute sessions, so you just need to register for an available session that fits in with your schedule, and you and I will we'll just chit-chat over WebEx, basically what we are doing right now, and see if we can resolve any issues that you are having getting content up on your website. Okay. There's a question about, do the MCS office hours operate in May? We will have summer office hours as well. The location for where we have office hours and also the time, it varies from semester to semester because we have to wait until classes have all been assigned to their classrooms, and any special events that might need a computer lab have also gotten their spaces reserved. And then basically we get pick of the leftovers. So once academic scheduling knows what computer labs are available after those higher priorities have been taken care of, they'll let us know, hey, you can have this computer lab for, you know, this entire semester at this chunk of time. So we don't usually move too often. We're either typically in Hall of Government, room 103, which is where we are right now, or we are in Rome Hall in the basement level in B104, but we always keep that information up to date on our website. So if you come to our website, and you just click on the office hours button right here. This page, our office hours page, which is also available under the contact us section. We always keep this updated for when we have office hours and where, if there's a cancellation for any reason. We also try and keep that information updated on the feed on our homepage. So you can see here that we keep our training sessions here as well as our schedule for office hours. So you can see when we're going to be available. You can click on that. It will take you to our office hours page, and you can see if where exactly we are located, at what time, and the specific dates as well. Are there any other questions? Oh, so going back to the menus, you showed us how to create menus and submenus, but they did not automatically show up on the site. How do we make sure they show up? So again, to make sure that you're, once you've created the menu under the appearance and menu section, the next thing that you need to do is go to your home page. So click on that visit site link and then click on customize. And from here, you'll go to menus and then menu locations, and you'll indicate which one is going to be your primary menu, which is here. And if it's supported, if the social media links menu is supported, you'll indicate what that one is here. And in this theme, that shows up down at the bottom. But this is how you should get that navigation showing up on your website. Are there any other questions? Okay, so it looks like the last question is about the recording. I do see that we're over time, so thank you everybody who stuck around a little bit late. I will be sharing the recording with everybody. There will be an email coming to you. It's going to have a link to the recording. It will also have links to additional resources, including the PowerPoint that we reviewed today, the university's web-safe color palette, so the colors that have past accessibility. It'll also have a link over to a presentation specifically about web accessibility, so you can make sure that as you're creating your content and managing your site, that you're following those accessibility best practices. And we'll be hosting an accessibility basics later this month as well, where we really kind of dig in a little more about subheads, creating menu links, and putting descriptive alt tags on your images. So you can see that's going to be April 25th. And then there'll be a few more additional resources in there that I can't think of off the top of my head, but it should give you guys a really good starting place to start working in GW Blogs. So again, thank you all, and have a good rest of your afternoon.